Hi, I'm Dr. Matthew Norton, the founder of People Plus Purpose. Welcome to the Truth Behind Dentistry podcast. And today I am excited to have with me Dr. Gerry Curatola. Dr. Curatola is an internationally renowned biologic dentist and wellness pioneer. He is the founder and executive director of Rejuvenation Dentistry, leading biological dental practices in New York City and East Hampton. He established the biologic dentistry program for the American Center for Bioregulatory Medicine and Dentistry in Providence, Rhode Island, and he serves on the advisory board of the Bioregulatory Medical Institute in Lexington, Kentucky. Dr. Curatola is adjunct clinical associate professor in karyology and comprehensive care at New York University's College of Dentistry. He established the Curatola Wing for Clinical Research at NYU in 2006 to further support oral systemic translational research. Dr. Curatola is a pioneer in oral microbiome research and dental toxicity and the inventor of Revitin toothpaste, the first nutritional and prebiotic toothpaste formulation to support microbial homeostasis in the mouth and restore oral health. His latest book, The Mouth-Body Connection, explores the bidirectional relationship behind oral health and systemic wellness. Welcome to the podcast, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you. You forgot to say I'm an Eagle Scout.
An Eagle Scout, yes. Well, I was going to get to that.
And I own my Boy Scout badge. Thank
I
you
was
for
trying
that
to
kind
figure out
introduction.
where that fit in the story there, but
Whereas my wife says I'm a legend in my own mind.
yes. And I do want to also let the viewers know that since Billy Joel could not be on this podcast with us, that you will not be singing "The Lady Is a Tramp" for us. So not today. Maybe in a follow.
Yeah, that was one of those bucket list experiences.
Yes, and you can, and the viewers can, if they don't know what we're talking about, they can search for that, right, and find and find the link. So I've been really looking forward to this conversation. I'm so glad that we've met. I'm so glad that we've shared some of the things, some of the philosophy and ideals that we hold in common that we've already discovered. And so that's meaningful to me to have the opportunity. I feel honored to have this interview with you. Maybe first off, you can tell us a little bit about the path that you took to pursue a biologic naturopathic approach in dentistry.
It was really, but first dentistry was a calling from 6 years old. I actually made a business card to become a dentist at 6 years old. It's in my book. This card.
Nice.
My father's card, cut the letters up. It said he had a trucking company where it said all goods insured, and I put good dentist.
Dentist. What year was it that he did that?
What's that?
What year was that he did that?
That was 1963.
Wow.
1963. Wow. It's kind of hard to believe I'm 66 years old, and so I do love. I call dentistry a noble profession. It is a noble profession, and you really got to love it to really stay in it for 40 plus years. And I think, for me, when I graduated New York University in 1983, I felt very well equipped. NYU is known for creating clinically competent dentists. But being clinically competent, in my experience, was really being a good mechanic of teeth. And I always felt I wanted to be more than just a mechanic of teeth. I wanted to be a physician of the mouth. I felt very disconnected from the rest of the body. It's the reason why like you mentioned, I wrote this book, The Mouth-Body Connection, because I knew, even dentists, the number one reason why dentists were being sued in 1983 was because they were so myopic about being mechanics of teeth that they didn't even look at the gums. So the failure to diagnose periodontal disease was a huge problem. Patients were having aggressive, advancing periodontal disease, which now we know is connected to everything from Alzheimer's to colorectal cancer. And dentists were failing to diagnose periodontal disease because it was, teeth, teeth, teeth. And fortunately, that's changed a lot. And we have many dentists now accurately diagnosing and maintaining periodontal health as importantly as dental health. And so for me, I was always driven to look for root causes. Like you'd see a patient with a mouthful of dental caries in school, and it was like, wow, they need a full mouth reconstruction. But okay, what's causing that decay? Why are they having all of these problems? And yes, we can treat the symptoms of disease, but what about the root causes? That took me down a rabbit hole from 1983. In 1983, there was the first master's program in the United States in holistic health, which was voodoo back then, holistic health. And I remember, I enrolled, it was being given at the Pratt Institute, which was big on holistic nutrition and integrative approaches. And it was a chiropractor who was the director of the program, Dr. Alan Pressman. And he's probably the first functional medicine physician in the country, Dr. Alan Pressman. And I remember I enrolled with a classmate of mine, Dr. David Chuck. He told me about it, and I was like, yeah, I want to study naturopathic medicine and homeopathic medicine and Ayurvedic medicine and Chinese medicine. There's more than what we get in the Western world, especially in dental school in the Western world. So I enrolled in this program. I remember my wife saying, "You have so many loans from dental school. What are you doing?" And I said, I told her, I said, I really think this will enhance my ability to care for patients.
Mm-hmm.
Patients see their dentist on a more regular basis than any other healthcare profession. They usually go to their medical doctor when something's wrong. And, maybe if they have a, bad, they're seeing their chiropractor more. And chiropractors have been, very ambitious about helping patients with nutrition and dietary supplementation and all this type of stuff. That dentist, I think there should be a holistic nutritionist in every dental office. And so that took me on that path. And from that program at Pratt in 1983, in 1997 and 98, Harvard Medical School started a certificate program in complementary and alternative medicine. It was with a Dr. David Eisenberg, who was a friend of Dr. Andrew Weil, the guy with the white beard who was writing books on healthy aging back in the 90s. And that was the next step for me. So I went to that program. What's interesting is at that program, I had medical doctors, chiropractors, PAs, physician assistants, RNs, and all these different healthcare professionals. And then they said, what do you do? I said, I'm a dentist. They were like, what are you doing here?
Right.
And I was like, well, the mouth is connected.
Yeah.
We have this mouth body connection,
Right.
And so that started. And then finally from there, I had an RN come into my office, and she was a holistic nutritionist. She was a critical care nurse, and she got into doing nutritional therapies. My daughter was getting all these sinus infections and all this stuff, and she was always antibiotic. And she, this woman came to me as a patient, and I sent my daughter to her, and my first thing, and this was back in the late 90s, 1999, around there, or 2000. And first thing she did is got her off gluten, got her off dairy. She never took another antibiotic for her sinus again. Her sinus problems went away. And I was like, wow. And we became friends. I was referring patients to her. I actually wanted her to come in my office. And finally, she came in one day and she said, Gerry, I actually have a change in my medical history. I said, really? She said, yeah, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So my knee-jerk response was, oh, you're going to Sloan Kettering, she said, no, that's a meat grinder. She said, I'm going to the Paracelsus Clinic in Switzerland under Dr. Thomas Rau, a medical doctor in Switzerland. And she's like, you got to meet this guy. And this gentleman was by primary influence in changing my practice of dentistry. Because if you had colon cancer, prostate cancer, lung cancer, autoimmune disease, chronic inflammatory diseases, rheumatoid arthritis, the first thing he would say is open your mouth. And if he saw heavy metals, like I'm embarrassed to say we still do with dental amalgams. You had any infected root canals, jaw cavitations, plastic fillings, which were bis-GMA resin, bisphenol A, glycidyl methacrylate, a chemical with estrogen disruptor. The first thing he'd say is get that crap out. Clean up your mouth, and then I'll treat your cancer. So, and that was pretty revolutionary for me and inspirational in my path. That's really where the practice of biologic medicine originated from. Practice of biologic dentistry as a subset of biologic medicine, which I'm sorry to say, most dentists, even those who call themselves biologic, don't really fully understand.
Yeah. Well, that was kind of one thing I was thinking as you were sharing that is, even with all the knowledge that's available, even with the internet and the spread and the greater ease of access than ever in the past, what percentage of doctors are really, even though it's available, are not accessing it or not pursuing it and then applying it? To me, it seems like, even though I know there's more than there ever used to be,
Right.
but it still seems markedly small compared to what it could be.
Unfortunately, that's true. I will tell you, and it's funny, we could do a study on this, and I know you do a lot of assessments and things. This is an assessment for you, Matthew.
Okay.
There are three types of dentists out there. There are those that say, I don't believe in that. And I've heard that. This, believe it or not, it's an expression. Many in my generation, by the way, I don't believe in that. And to me, that's the highest level of ignorance, because there's so much science to support this. And they immediately say, oh, that's unscientific, or that's this. And I'm like, no. There's actually PubMed studies, NIH studies on endotoxin production from root canal therapy and endotoxins in titanium implants. And we know about, there's actually been studies on hyperactivity in children from bisphenols coming from the old bis-GMA composite. And they're like, oh, that's unscientific, and this and that. And they really don't want to go outside the box. It's like, what I learned in school is good enough for me. I'm doing it. It's what I'm licensed for, and that's it. And that's, unfortunately, I don't think you're going to really get them to wake up after 30 or 40 years of practice to say, I want to be open to something new. I'll tell you the ones that would, the ones that have prostate cancer, the ones that have Parkinsonism, the ones that have MS, or the ones that have other life-changing systemic illness. They were diagnosed with cancer, or they have a brain tumor. Then they want to learn more. And I, by the way, I've had dentists who are in their 70s, dentists who are in their 60s, dentists who are in their 50s that are my patients that have had this cognitive decline. The symptoms of mercury toxicity and the symptoms of Alzheimer's disease are identical. Dementia and Alzheimer's disease, identical. We know that periodontal disease is a major risk factor for dementia and Alzheimer's, and what it does with neurofibrillary tangles and amyloid plaques in the brain. So the ones that say, I don't believe in it, they say very few atheists and foxholes. They kind of like have a come to Jesus moment.
Yeah.
And then you have the middle of the road that's just too damn busy to want to do anything different, and they're just busy in practice. But I'm very encouraged by the younger generations of dentists that are emerging today. Those that we would call in the millennial bracket, and even now, the 20s, I think they're called Gen Zs.
Mhm.
And my grandson, who's 6, he's in the alphas. Those are called alphas.
Mhm.
and the awareness and the opening and the awakening, which is why I am with the help of and support of people that would endow this. I'm looking to establish a center for integrative and biologic dentistry. I hope, I gave a naming gift to NYU for translational research in 2006, and they're all happy. And that was before my 401k became a 101k in 2008. And then my wife was like, "Why did you give that money?"
Right.
But now I really am motivated because I think we need to, the future is in education of the younger dentists who are
Yes.
emerging today.
Yes. Well, I'm struck by where those transitional elements were for you, right? Because of all the technical expertise specific to different professions, right? I think that has created one of many reasons why we've created silos in the education, to the exposure to other voices. So the idea of an integrative wellness approach to me gets pushed back because of those silos, which leads to
Yes,
more people saying, I don't believe. But for you, early on, you had those opportunities that you took, right? You still had to choose to take them, but you had exposure opportunities for something that transcended the silos. You got with people
exactly.
who were in other areas going, hey, this is connected. This is what I'm seeing. And that changed your whole world right there.
Yeah, you are so right, and it's so interesting that you referenced that because um, I felt weird.
Yeah, that you
I
did.
was, I mean it. I was all alone there. I mean,
Yeah.
on many of these programs, I was the only dentist, or with a colleague of mine, we were few dentists. And I'm happy to say there are probably more that are emerging now. For example, there's a network of dentists now that I know in Europe and in other countries, um, South America, Mexico, and other places where they are very, very open, and we are all kind of motivated to recognize that dentistry in many respects stays in the dark ages about some of this. Like, we have these organizations like the OASH and, Oral Systemic Health Association. And,
Mhm.
and, and, uh, and, I kind of, they're in the right church, but they're not in the right pew. Um, there are things in dentistry that have been accepted as good, like xylitol, that are terrible. Like they're just saying it's made from natural sugar, natural sugar. No, it's a sugar alcohol. It's a high value chemical that is made by an industrialized process of hydrogenation. And there was junk science from Finland showing that it kills strep mutans bacteria. But we know now, after, and I have 20 years of research in the oral microbiome, we know now that killing germs on contact, killing germs 24 hours a day is not only ineffectual for oral health, but harmful. We need to understand that microbial flora in the mouth, we used to call biofilm,
Mhm.
is an intelligent, semi-permeable membrane
Mm.
that performs vital functions for oral health. We were told in dental school, oh, the bacteria cause gum disease, Porphyromonas gingivalis, Streptococcus mutans bacteria, dental caries. And it was this germ theory. But what we know now is it's part of this milieu that the same bacteria that we recognized as pathogens behave benign and even beneficial, quite frankly, when they are in a state of microbial homeostasis. So it's really not about nuking everything.
Right.
It's really about promoting organic gardening in your mouth.
Yeah, that's great. I couldn't agree more. And I think um, again, that kind of comes back to siloed perspectives in a way, as though we could introduce a chemical and not understand it's going to have pervasive effects, or really what is the context already? I don't know if you like,
Yeah.
so there was a
Yeah.
series of books that were about contextual healing. I don't know if you're Dean Black was his name, I think. I don't know if you've ever read any of his stuff, but that was one thing that really struck me is the understanding of context relative to cancer and a variety of
Yeah.
things. What's the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual context in which things either bacteria or certain cells become
That's
positive for you or negative for you.
Well, we have and it's funny, I came out of dental school and right in the middle of the AIDS crisis, right? And
Ah,
right in the beginning there, and there were patients, who are these, in the prime of their life that were stricken with HIV and then AIDS.
right.
And it became like, whoa, became germaphobes, kind of like COVID,
Yeah.
where people were doing ridiculous things. I remember I was driving on the highway and there was a guy with MD plates sitting behind the wheel, double masked, alone in the car. I was like, this is insanity.
Yeah. Yeah.
We need to understand this very important relationship between man and microbe.
Right.
And it was interesting. I was giving a lecture at a dental conference about the microbiome and all that, and I said, I believe like we're made of microbes. There's this whole mitochondrial bacterial theory that the mitochondria of our cells are the same shape and size as bacterium, and they have genetic information, and they divide the same mitochondrial division, and the division of a bacterium is very similar. And I said, kind of makes me think about that verse in the Bible where it says, "And God took from the dust of the earth."
Mm.
Um, maybe it wasn't dust, maybe it was microbes. And there was a
Ah,
guy in the audience who was a biblical scholar who had studied the ancient Hebrew and Aramaic, and he said, the word is not dust, where it says God took from the dust of the earth and breathed his spirit, and we became mind, body, spirit. He said the word is actually slime or slime, goo.
ah,
And the earth was
fascinating.
covered with microbial goo, scientists agree, before we ever existed on this planet. And it kind of gave me perspective of the fact that the microbes have paid a much bigger price and a
Mm.
much longer evolutionary journey than we have on this planet. And so I came up with these microbiome commandments, which I often put up in the lectures. I was like, we're made of microbes. Actually, the actual microbial flora in and on our bodies, our respiratory microbiome, our skin microbiome, our genitourinary microbiome, and our oral and gut microbiomes, which are, of course, get center stage, that the number of microbes are, and there are estimates, 10 times our own human cells. And
Yes.
if you translate the genetic information from microbes vastly outweighs our own. And they do everything from make neurotransmitters for our brain to in the mouth. It's amazing. Most dentists don't even realize this, but the microbiome of our mouth transports ionic minerals from saliva to our teeth. So our teeth actually are remineralized from the microbial flora transporting ionic minerals from saliva, calcium and phosphorus, to our teeth. We have this natural process. It transports molecular oxygen to our gingival tissue. So, and it takes away free radicals, and ionic oxygen is transported away. So it's called the dento-sialo-microbial complex.
Mm.
That changes everything.
Wow.
So the idea of, oh, you got to kill the Porphyromonas gingivalis to have healthy gums, and you got to kill strep mutans with xylitol, which, by the way, xylitol was developed by a subsidiary of DuPont. They
Wow.
took a bio waste and they turned it into a mega billion-dollar industry. Brilliant. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. They took GMO corn cobs and they extracted xylan, and they came up with the sugar alcohol, xylitol. By the way, the catalyst was a heavy metal, rainy nickel. It's the catalyst in the manufacture of xylitol. Then they did studies in Finland. Daniska is a subsidiary of DuPont. They were the company that did this. They paid for these studies in Finland that showed that xylitol disturbed the biofilm and it killed strep mutans bacteria. So they interpreted that as good for oral health, which is total BS.
Yeah.
Good for oral health is make peace with your microbes,
Right.
restore microbial homeostasis.
Right. Right.
Dentists swallow this. It's in natural oral care products and everything. And I like pull my hair out with this because they're brainwashed into thinking that it's good for oral health because it kills, because that's the mantra. And like that, we could do another.
And there's money, there's money behind, there's so much money behind it.
Billions of dollars.
So what truth, this is the Truth Behind Dentistry podcast. So if we're going to throw out some truths, there's a lot of them that you just said. And I mean, dare we mention fluoride in terms of the
now we're really going to go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, and maybe we don't need to.
My daughter is in her first year of dental school, Matthew, and she's heard me about fluoride because every dentist should go to fluoridealert.org. It's a consumer advocacy group, it's a PhD, molecular biologist and chemist who put all the data on fluoride together. There's over 72 studies on drinking fluoridated water, lowering IQ in children. It's been linked to cancer. It's a neurotoxin, an endocrine disruptor that you have to basically put on hazmat suits to dump this crap into the New York City water supply. New York City buys this industrial waste that they got to wear hazmat suits.
Like aluminum waste.
Hydrofluoric. Well, it's a byproduct. Fluoride is a byproduct, a waste product from aluminum manufacturing. Can you say Alcoa, phosphate fertilizer industry? Can you say Monsanto? And wait for it, uranium enrichment. Can you say the Department of Defense? Wow. They used to put this stuff in the ground and it would kill everything from like miles. It really was toxic in the ground. So there were these studies, they call them the Grand Rapids studies, that were showing that the introduction of fluoride, it's actually fluorine is the periodic table. Fluoride was a made-up word. It was fluorine, it's the most highly reactive, non-radioactive element on the periodic table, F-. It's the most negatively charged. So when you introduce it into teeth and bones, it quickly blows out the hydroxy, the OH-, and it becomes F-, AP+, or fluorapatite from hydroxyapatite. No one ever did the physical properties of fluorapatite versus hydroxyapatite. Fluorapatite is very hard. So it's like glass, right? Like this glass. Very hard, but very brittle. So if I drop this on the cement floor, it'll break in a million pieces. Well, there is very much lower tensile strength. As a matter of fact, it's like 30% or 35% less tensile strength than our natural teeth and bones. So fluorapatite, and it's in the 1980s, the orthopedists did these hip fracture studies, and they thought, like, because they introduced fluoridation, water fluoridation, they thought that with water fluoridation, not only would teeth be harder, and then they are, teeth are harder. You look on the x-rays and, you see like this very dense, it looks very pretty, you could actually see the fluoride layer from a fluoridated enamel. And with the bones, they expected the same thing, expected with the introduction that hip fracture rates would have went down because teeth and bones are stronger. Well, they found the inverse. They found a complete increase in hip fracture rates and osteoporosis. There's over 20 studies on water fluoridation linked to osteoporosis, and it's epidemic. You look at these people, these women, postmenopausal, osteoporosis is everywhere. So, the studies are horrifying, and yet there is a huge political lobby to continue this that's driven by organizations that I'm a card-carrying member of. Like the American Dental Association, you would think is standing up for that. And, the history of the ADA is also pretty interesting. They were founded by pro-amalgam dentists after the Civil War. And the ADA had the original patent on dental amalgam, which dentists colloquially call silver fillings, and they're not silver fillings. They're mercury fillings. They're 51% mercury, 26% silver. It's a fraudulent misrepresentation to the patient to say, Matthew, I'm going to put a silver filling in the back. It doesn't show and it'll stay in there forever. You know, you're not going to have a problem. The insurance companies love that. It's cheap, it's easy to do, and it stays in your head forever. But how about if I said, Matthew, you know, I'm going to put a little mercury filling in the back of your mouth? You'd be like, wait a minute, Gerry, wait a minute. You're going to stick mercury 2 inches from my brain?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, what the hell is that?
Right.
So these are the things, quite honestly, if we're going to talk about the truth behind dentistry, I mean, these are really hot topics that dentists go, oh, as soon as they hear it, like, oh, he's one of those wackos. No, it's not wacko. I'm as science-driven as anybody could be.
Yeah.
I am not wacko.
And
I have feelings.
I concur that you're not wacko. And unless people like to say I am as well, but that's the risk I'll take, right? But I think that, you know, I mean, it's kind of like A Few Good Men, right? You can't handle the truth. I mean, so there is an element of that of
you can't handle the truth.
How much truth are people willing to handle? I mean, you can refute, and that's the easiest way. Now, for everybody who's like fascinated, hopefully everybody is, as I am, as we're having this conversation, and is concerned that we're not going to get to everything we need to talk about. The answer is your concern is well-founded, because we're not. But the good news is we're going to have a part 2 and a part 3 or whatever, because I'm convinced that we need to do everything we can to help support getting this message out, because I think it's for the right reason that you're doing this. So before we wrap up this particular episode, I'm thinking about, because there's other directions to go in, which we won't do with this. We'll come back to it. But to tie up back to the things that people are recommending, you mentioned xylitol. You mentioned the things that are the treatment approaches that are actually disrupting the oral microbiome. So in your book, and we'll come back and talk about the book more in our next episode, but are you offering wise counsel solutions in your book that say this is a protocol that actually protects, preserves, enhances that oral microbiome? Is that something that people should say, I got to get that book, because not do I need the understanding, but I need some strategy?
Three chapters of the book explain how the Human Microbiome Project and the understanding of the oral microbiome has dramatically changed our approach, our understanding, and our approach in oral health and in dentistry. And, you know, my mission with the book actually was for the guy who was on the drive-through at, you know, Burger King, you know, that like wake up and realize that that inflammation in the mouth is the biggest threat to their systemic health. Chronic low-grade inflammation, I believe, is the most debilitating. There's so many things in dentistry that is inflammatory, and you know, starting with, you know, the number one, of course, is periodontal disease. But yet, I graduated dental school in 1983, Matthew, and periodontal disease was epidemic. Gum disease was epidemic, approaching 80% of the adult public, from gingivitis to advanced periodontitis. And here we are today on this podcast, I know, at 2024, talking about periodontal disease being an epidemic. And this. So I spent a good part of my life through this educational process of transcending what were the basic accepted things. I mean, you know, toothpaste was invented. I was on the Martha Stewart show in 2008, a long time ago. I was already doing research in oral care, and I had named the Curatola wing for clinical research, and I was very committed to, and I already had 3 patents on a prebiotic formulation that had all this stuff vitamin C,
Uh-huh.
CoQ10, vitamin E, MSM, stimulates stem cell activity in periodontal ligaments and all this. But it was all designed, this in a double-blind clinical study with the leading brand of toothpaste, reduced gingival inflammation by, I feel like a shameless self-promoter here.
That's fine.
I haven't made any money on this, but it's the best toothpaste you can use.
Yeah.
But what I realized is that we need to respect the new science of the oral microbiome, because what it says is the best way to promote oral health is to make peace with your microbes, taking this organic gardening approach rather than the scorched earth policy of the Listerines and everything else in the world. So for me, that was groundbreaking. And the book and the oral care research kind of came together. So I have 3 chapters in the mouth-body connection. I wrote it, I had an editor. She was big editor at Random House. And Hachette gave her to me. And we were able to put this book together with a 28-day program to reduce inflammation. And it was more than just what you brush your teeth with. It had the importance of everything from managing stress to physical exercise, healthy exercise, and obviously getting the junk out of there, but nutrition, what I call AAA nutrition, alkalizing, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant rich, putting all this together in a program that I thought would help the guy who was, on the drive-through line, and help them realize that your mouth is connected to everywhere else.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, now, it's 6 years later or 7 years later that this book has been out. And I have so many dentists send me emails going, Gerry, I learned so much from your book. Thank you for that. And a lot of this I never heard before. I never even heard it in dental school. And I've learned so much because it really helped put things in context for what we're doing.
Yeah.
And understanding that we are a vital part of helping patients on a path to live a longer, healthier, and hopefully happier life.
Yeah, well, and I thank you for all that you're doing. And I'm certain that not everything that you've done has turned into a financial windfall, possibly. But I'm certain that you're being taken care of in life by virtue of the work that you're doing, but the work that you're doing coming from the place that you want to deliver it from in your heart, that the contribution that you're making is something that is always meaningful. So I want to encourage, as we wrap up, that everybody get the book. And then I would like to resume our conversation next time to explore a bit more about the book, that approach that you're talking about, and then just some other fascinating things that I know we have to talk about. So as we go, if they can't wait till next time to hear anything else, if they want to reach out to you to learn more, what's the best way? How would you direct them?
I put a lot of content out in social media at Dr. Gerry Curatola. It's DrGeryCuratola, and Rejuvenation Health is my practice. It was Rejuvenation Dentistry. We kind of evolved because there is this umbrella.
I like
it. My dream is to bring dentistry and medicine back together under this umbrella of wellness, because it was illogical that 150 years ago, the education split, and it was like, oh, you're medical doctors, you go over here, and if you just want this one area,
right,
you go to dental school. Whereas in Europe, especially like Switzerland, if you want to become a dentist, you go to medical school and then you subspecialize, just like cardiology, neurology, endocrinology, gastroenterology, gynecology, everything else. Dentistry is in there as a subspecialty of this root of holistic medicine. And so at Rejuvenation Health, at Dr. Gerry Curatola, we are at, Rejuve Health, rejuve-health.com. We're always, I am trying to build a network of dentists that are committed to taking dentistry in a more positive direction, holistic positive direction.
Well, I thank you for all of that. I'm proud of you for all that you've accomplished, and
Thank you.
thank you for your time. I really appreciate it for all that you've shared. I look forward to next time, and we will resume. So thank you everybody for watching. This has been Dr. Matthew Norton, and this is the Truth Behind Dentistry. And today we've been with Dr. Gerry Curatola, and we have been in one episode covering more truth behind dentistry than I think in any other interview I've done. So thank you very much. We look forward to next time.